What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's blogging theboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I trust that you are pleased with the Dallas Cowboys having completely, totally, thoroughly, absolutely, unequivocally dominating. I don't even remember what tense of the verb I'm using at this point in time, but the Dallas Cowboys absolutely dominated the Washington Commanders on Sunday afternoon. It was far and away the most complete game that they have played so far this season. I think the only contender in that respect prior to Sunday's game against Washington was the win against the New York Jets. And I understand that everybody wants to add the qualifier, that it was just the Jets, whatever. This was a very good team. We can obviously acknowledge that Jaden Daniels was knocked out early in the second half and offer our well wishes, our thoughts, our prayers, hoping that Jaden Daniels is all right. We obviously don't like the Washington Commanders as a team, as a division rival, but we're never rooting for injuries. So all the best to Jaden Daniels. But this game from top to bottom was a masterclass for the Dallas Cowboys. Did it have the occasional hiccup? Sure, absolutely. Did it have the safety, the unfortunate deuce that the Cowboys dropped? That goes without saying, but the Cowboys offense was on fire. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson, Javonte Williams, Brandon Aubrey doing his thing. Everything about the Cowboys offense, except for that little bit of start and stop stuff they had going on. But you get my picture. From a totality perspective, the Cowboys offense was phenomenal on Sunday against Washington. But the story has to be the defense. The story has to be that the defense stood tall. The defense heard us, all of us, myself, yourself, themself, they self, each and every single person on this planet, because we were all talking about how trash they were, how awful they were. And I don't think that any of us are shying away from what we said because it was objective fact. That defense, this defense potentially was among the very worst in not only franchise history, but NFL history. But on Sunday against the Washington Commanders, they stood tall. They played with pride. They did not quit on Matt Eberflus. And how about a little bit of some love for Matt Eberflus for adjusting, for being more aggressive, for not just being insistent on playing zone defense each and every single down, to the point that this has become a national discussion. This was a very well executed game from the Dallas Cowboys from top to bottom on all sides of the ball, and the win obviously shows that. Now, look, they're 3-1. I don't think any of us are going to get ahead of ourselves. I don't think any of us are going to say the Cowboys are suddenly going to go on and win the Super Bowl. But I think that if we're being fair, I don't think this is getting too far out ahead of any kind of thought. The Cowboys have maybe the best offense in the NFL. If you want to say another is better, if we want to quibble, whatever, but you get the point that they are among the very best offenses in the NFL. They certainly have maybe the best offensive cast in the NFL, maybe the best offensive quarterback in the NFL right now. It goes without saying. You understand the point. When you have that going on, anything is possible in general. But when you have that going on and a defense that can play not even just complimentary football, but just like a little bit below complimentary football. That's what we've been asking. We haven't been saying, look, defense, you have to carry this team. Look, defense, you have to generate multiple turnovers. You have to do this. You have to do that. When you do those things, everything snowballs. The avalanche comes tumbling down. And you look at what happened on Sunday. Obviously, the Shamar James, shout out to the Florida Gators, obviously, gets the forced fumble on Jaden Daniels. You've got Deron Bland with the pick six. When all these things are happening, you allow for everyone to play in better and perfect and more synchronized harmony with one another. And so if you can get just that, we're not even talking about something, we're not asking for something ridiculous. We're asking for the bare minimum to a little bit more than that on a consistent basis. And the Cowboys defense certainly delivered that on Sunday, which again is why they won by a margin of 44-22. In fact, I think we could sit here and say, as Cowboys fans, looking at the game they just won 44-22 and be like, that wasn't even really like their best effort. And that's what happens when everybody plays in harmony together, as noted. On YouTube, Jesu Mill, I think I'm reading that correctly, says, man, now Jerry's going to make a trade and trade the first he got from Micah. Christian notes that tomorrow's a Victory Polo Monday. That's correct. Karan says, keep improving every week. Kenny, what's up, Kenny? On YouTube says, are they ready to finally put Dak in the MVP conversation, even though it should have happened 3 weeks ago? Kenny, what I will say to that, I tweet out the MVP odds each and every single week. And I understand as a Cowboys fan that I want to see Dak Prescott's name there. The thing about MVP odds is they aren't, a listing of who deserves MVP the most. They're odds. And the reality of MVP is it is partly a narrative-based award. You can be the most valuable player on your team, obviously, and your team be trash in an overall sense and not be anywhere near the running for this particular award. That's something we can debate the merits of, but that's the way it works. And so that's why Dak Prescott's name has been low on the totem pole. If the Cowboys start to reel off some wins, and the story behind Dak Prescott is his front office does nothing. They don't ever participate in free agency. They drag out all the contract extensions. They traded away the best defensive player on the team a week before the season began, right? The story and the narrative kind of writes itself for Dak to win the award, especially if he plays the way that he's been playing so far this season across the whole of it. And the only thing that's missing, and it sounds like it's a nothing proposition, but it's a big deal, are wins from the team. And so winning helps everything. And so I fully expect Dak Prescott to be on the rise in respects along these lines and in these manners. And I think that's something we all would like to see on top of the Cowboys winning games, obviously. Let's see. Lucky Doc Watch on YouTube says the game was a lot of fun. Lamb and Pickens are lethal together. This was, look, by the way, this is our post-game show. Shout out to those of you who are watching on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. You can like the video. Please subscribe. Got videos coming out each and every single day. All sorts of live shows, recorded interviews, videos, blah, 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 blah. We're here 24/7, 365 talking about this team that we all know and love. This post-game show, is also powered by Bleach Report. You can watch our Dallas Cowboys post-game shows as well in the Bleach Report app. So shout out to our Bleach Report audience. I see you, RB Cowboy, M Wood 5, Billy Mana, K King 2. Hope all of you are doing well as well. This was by far, I think I speak for all of us here. Sunday against Washington was far and away the most fun that I have had as a Dallas Cowboys fan this season. And the main reasons for that, look, the defense was great. Dak Prescott was awesome. Javonte Williams runs hard. Jake Ferguson caught 2 touchdowns. Brandon Aubrey had a 61-yard field goal. Right? Like we could, kind of put together a list and have a really fun debate. But the most fun was had as a direct result of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. That duo, that pair, that set of just superstar wide receivers makes everything awesome. The super long, amazing CeeDee Lamb touchdown. It was just the sickest thing that George Pickens was kind of just, escorting him in. They were like laughing. They were just enjoying it. It was perfect. It was harmony. It was almost fake. It was almost something that you would see in a really bad, kind of direct to streaming. I know that that's not an insult anymore because so many awesome shows are direct to stream, but you get my point. It would be like a really bad TV show football play. Is what this looked like. It was that comical. It was that insane. It was that amazing. It was that, just kind of fictitious in narrative, but it wasn't fictitious. It's real. It's, valid. It's something that we get to watch on a week to week by basis. And again, I would say that this game didn't even feel like they were at the peak of their powers. It didn't even feel like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens were having to reach deep down in the barrel and pull off, heroic catches with everything they had. And that's because George Pickens did have heroic catches in this game. The touchdown that came at the end of the first half was a direct result of George Pickens and his heroism, And so, they have really served as a catalyst in a way that, honestly, it's not apples to apples in any stretch, but reminds me of Dak Prescott and Zeke Elliott as rookies. That kind of energy, that kind of vibe, that kind of infusion of new wave, new talent, whatever. That's what CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens feels like, and you can certainly see the effect that it's having on the team overall. John D 1464 said, feels like a 2023 home game again. It really did. You had the Deron Bland pick 6 to kind of go with it. It was awesome. It was perfect in every single way. Zach on YouTube says, I know I should absolutely love this win, but I just have the thought of where this team could have been with Micah is so upsetting. I understand that and I get that, but the reality of the 2025 Dallas Cowboys through their first 7 games, shout out to Monica Geller always, is they're 3-3-1. They are kind of figuring it out as they go along. They are kind of, as people, myself included, love to say, building the plane as they are flying. And to their credit, they're kind of doing it. I would not bet on them to win the Super Bowl by any stretch. But what I will say is they have maybe the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Again, we can quibble about the specifics of that, but you get my point. They have, the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. They have one of the best tight end weapons in the NFL right now. They have one of the best run games in the NFL. They have one of the most aggressive offensive play callers who's their head coach in the NFL, who not only leans into the aggression of the team on the field relative to X's and O's, but seems to understand their disposition and seems to have the right kind of way of pulling the right strings and pressing the right buttons and pushing down the right pedals. And now, they finally have a defense that can do its part. And again, no one is saying that we need you to do more than your part, defense, but the defense did more than its part on Sunday against Washington. And as a result, the game was so lopsided. So when you do your part, this offense is good enough to have even just kind of a B+ day, and that be enough against any team in the NFL. That doesn't justify anything the Cowboys have done to this point, but what it does mean is that we have all the reason in the world to hold excitement, cautious excitement, I would offer, across the rest of this season. And that's ultimately the most important thing as a football fan. You want to have the ability to believe in your team. When the holidays start to approach, when the cooler weather arrives, it is the worst thing ever for your football team to be out of it. But that doesn't have to be the case for us. Now, they may lose games. They will lose games, the Cowboys, but they are talented enough to be fully and totally, absolutely in any game they play across the rest of the season, and that's a very exciting thing. On Bleacher Report, let's see here. Silent Obsidian says, how about Shamar James? Kid is stepping up, and Donovan Ezuraku is figuring it out. This was a game where everybody ate on defense, right? Like, you can certainly point to the Shamar James forced fumble. You can certainly point to Donovan Ezuraku. You can certainly say that this was Jadeveon Clowney's best game as a Cowboy. Obviously, you can talk about the Deron Bland pick six. I mean, everybody on the defense stepped up. And I would say that we have to give some credit, a lot of credit, to Matt Eberflus. And to that point, to Brian Schottenheimer for sticking with him and believing him and continuing to empower him. I mean, that's a very shaky thing to do, obviously, given the situation that the Cowboys were in prior to Sunday against Washington. And that's also not to say that everything's fixed now and everything's perfect and it's never going to be the way that it was. But this was a game where everybody delivered. Everybody had kind of seemingly had enough. Kaiir Elam had a great game, had kind of a debatable penalty near the end, and the sun was a big thing because of course it was. But I mean, this was a just, I want to say world class, but an all world type of game for this Cowboys defense, as far as we've understood it to be relative to this point in the season. And again, that's why they won the way that they did. They don't have to be who they've been the last few years and just be these sack and turnover machines. Obviously, we would absolutely love that. But if you can get those splash plays, if you can have those flashpoint moments, if you can, give your offense a short field, if you can get off the field, I mean, this is a defense that forced 4 punts in the first quarter, that had the 2-point conversion stop, that had the 4th down stop. I mean, this game was almost over at halftime. It was effectively over, obviously, midway through the third quarter, and certainly after Jaden Daniels got hurt, and all the best to him. But I mean, this game was effectively over when it was, because the defense did their job, and obviously because the offense, lived up to their side of the bargain on the other side of the ball. Let's see here. Zach Fowler says that penalty was wild. It was. Kenny says, I think this was a good sign for the direction of the defense. I always say they don't have to be perfect. Bend, don't break, and being opportunistic always. I agree with you. Let's see here. A note from Dallas Cowboys PR that came out an hour ago. Jake Ferguson is the first tight end in NFL history with at least 50 receptions and 6 receiving touchdowns in the first 7 games of a season. Pretty incredible. I do think that Jake Ferguson deserves a huge shout out, not just for Sunday's game against Washington, but for the season he's having. And I think that Jake Ferguson is representative of an important lesson for us and for the Dallas Cowboys front office to take away. So first of all, Jake Ferguson, through the first 7 games of the season, has 6 touchdowns. That is a career high for him. Jake Ferguson began this season with 7 touchdowns to his name. So he is 1 away from matching that, and obviously 2 away from exceeding that just in the 2025 season alone. But I will take you back to the days in Oxnard, the summer days in Oxnard, when the Cowboys gave Jake Ferguson an extension, and there was debate about it, and we don't have to relitigate all of that. But my point in bringing this up is Jake Ferguson got an extension. It was late in it, but still in the first window of opportunity. He was first eligible for an extension after last season, the 2024 season, obviously. The Cowboys gave it to him. They look like geniuses right now. There's zero doubt about it, right? They had a guy on their roster who they believed in, who they bet on, and right now they look like absolute geniuses for doing this. This is another argument for why you want to pay players as soon as you possibly can. Just imagine a world. We're obviously sitting here having the conversation every other day about how the Cowboys should get a deal done with George Pickens or Brandon Aubrey or whatever you want to talk about. But we would be having that conversation with Jake Ferguson if they hadn't done that. That is something they deserve credit for, and that is something that they should take the lesson from and apply everywhere else. That was a phenomenal decision. They bought low, they bet low, and they hit high. And good for them, because Jake Ferguson has been awesome. We talk so much about how CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens have become this duo and these weapons, and rightly and understandably so. But Jake Ferguson dominating the way that he has opened up an entire sector of what the Cowboys want to do offensively, of what Dak Prescott is able to do offensively. I think we can look back to his injury against Cleveland in week 1 of last year and understand that he was just never fully and totally himself, but he is fully and totally himself here in 2025. And he is absolutely proving to be worth each and every single dollar the Cowboys gave him. He has opened up an entire new dimension of the middle of the field for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys offense at large, which is benefited by the fact that CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens exist. But holy crap, seriously, congratulations to Jake Ferguson. He continues to ball out each and every single week. Let's see here. Lucky Doc Watch says Fergie definitely is on a heater right now. I think it's Eradication Gaming 2204 says, let's go. Hey, RJ, how are you? I hope you had a great day and smoked some yummy food. I didn't smoke any food today. Bit of a busy day. These, just kind of, no pun intended, how the sausage gets made. These 3:30 games are a bit tough just with the kid and everything. I love primetime games from a practical standpoint. Noon games can kind of be worked from the other end of the spectrum, but the 3:30 games are a little bit difficult. So I think I'm going to do some kind of leftovers once I'm done with this postgame show. Let's see here. On Bleacher Report, Burning Meteor says, man defense has always been the best plan of action. Multiple things can be true. It can be true that Matt Eberflus deserves a lot of credit for adjusting and for changing and for not just going down with the ship for whatever reason of zone defense. And it can be true that zone defense has some benefits, right? Like no one is sitting here and saying, don't ever play zone. That is nobody's point at all. But our point, our collective point, I think, is that look at Sunday's game against Washington. Having the, I don't even want to say ability, but having the willingness to adjust what you're going to do on defense from a not even play-to-play basis, but series-to-series basis, or just at least being open to an alternative thought, open to an alternative line of thinking, that is the most important quality to have, not just as a coach and not even as a teacher, but as just a person, right? Like there's nothing that any of us would do in our own lives, at least I would hope, that you would do one way over and over and over and over again, and it never, ever, ever work. And you just continue to tell yourself, I'm going to keep doing it this way. This makes sense. No, nobody would do that. And maybe you wouldn't switch to an alternative way or an alternative method on a permanent basis, but you would say, you know what? I've been trying this. So let me try that. Let me just try it one time. Heck, let me try it twice. Let me try it 5 times. Let me see how it goes. And maybe it'll be worse. But I think that the acceptance, whether it was from Matt Eberflus individually or from the Cowboys defense and their leadership at large, to be able to adapt and adjust and play things other than zone on a strict 100% full-time basis, really was represented by how they succeeded as a group on defense on Sunday against the Washington Commanders. On YouTube, Ace, goodness gracious, I can't see. I've got this glare in my eye. I feel like the Cowboys players. AC J-Dog, excuse me, gosh, I couldn't read that for a second. Says, we need to play more man coverage. It paid off today, albeit no Debo or McLaurin for Washington. It's totally well said that Washington was down some of their best players, which is why we shouldn't freak out. We shouldn't go crazy. We shouldn't whatever. We should contextualize this game. But the Cowboys, when this game first hit sports books last week, 7 days ago, the Cowboys were underdogs. Now, that was obviously before news of Debo and McLaurin, before it was fully understood that CeeDee was coming back and Devontae Turpin and all this stuff. But they were, at one point in time, 2.5-point underdogs. Now, that moved as the week went on. And as of this Sunday morning, the Cowboys were 1.5-point favorites. But this was not just like, oh, some slam dunk. Don't let anyone. People will try to minimize this game. And people will try to say, oh, whatever. Oh, the Cowboys this. Oh, the Cowboys that. I'm not sitting here saying this is the biggest mount ever that the Cowboys should put, in their den. That's not what we're saying. But what we are saying is that this Washington team is a group that a lot of people rightfully believed in. Also rightfully said that regression to the mean would be coming for in 2025. And this Cowboys team didn't just beat them, didn't just handle them. They whooped their ass. I mean, this Cowboys team took care of Washington. This was kind of a game early on, but for the most part, it really wasn't. The only reason this was a game was because of that initial touchdown that Washington had. And I don't mean to cherry pick and take something away and say, if not for the super important thing, this wouldn't have been a game. It was a game. But as the game wore on, as time wore on, as the Cowboys had more opportunities, all they did was separate themselves. All they did was continue to mount more of a lead and put their defense and subsequently their offense in more positions to take advantage and capitalize and be more aggressive and do different things. And that worked in perfect harmony, and the Cowboys were able to come away with an impressive win. So do not let anyone tell you that this was not a big deal. Beyond the fact that objectively it was a big deal, it was a division win. These are massive. We have no idea what the rest of the season is going to have in store relative to the Eagles and the Commanders, obviously, or the Giants. Shout out to the Broncos for taking care of business late on Sunday afternoon. So these games, these wins, these specific games and wins matter to the most serious degree when we look back at things in late December and early January. On YouTube, Kenny says, belt to ass, brother. I love that. That is finally made its way into the lexicon of the Blogging the Boys universe. The haters not realize Dak has owned this division for 10 years is wild. Here's the thing. Look, if you are someone who does not believe that Dak Prescott, I'm not even going to go as far as saying is like the best quarterback in the NFL, right? Like no one's going to sit here and be ridiculous, which is kind of the point of what I'm about to say. But if you are someone who is going to sit or stand or whatever, wherever you are, and still with, a full ability to like operate as a human being, say like, I just don't see it from Dak Prescott. He just doesn't have it. He's not very good. Then you are not tethered to reality. Again, we're not sitting here telling you something that he is not. But what we are sitting here and telling you is that there is now a literal decade worth of evidence and data. And there are all sorts of opposing variables from throughout Philadelphia and New York and Washington, different head coaches and play callers and defensive coordinators and quarterbacks and star defensive players and personnel and whatever. And Dak Prescott has not on a 100% basis, but on a basis that is incredibly, highly, unbelievably impressive, owned them all. And again, you can sit here and get off your lame Cowboys Facebook meme jokes and whatever. Those things don't hurt us because we hate this team more than you do in some respects. And we will come up with more creative things because of that. We're not above acknowledging the truth when it comes to this team or this quarterback for that matter. But if you're not acknowledging the truth when it comes to this team or to the matter at hand, the quarterback, then you aren't being fair. You aren't being rational. You aren't being objective. Dak Prescott thoroughly, completely, and in every single way owns not just the Washington franchise, but the entire NFC East in terms of head-to-head play. That is undeniable. You can look it up. You can Google it. You can AI it. I really do not care. All results are going to point you in the same direction. On YouTube, Chris says 4 points and 1 thunder delay away from being number one in the NFC East. That's true. That's very well said. On on YouTube, Kenny says those people are truly just non-ball knowers or honestly just haters of the Cowboys. It's wild. Dak will eventually break every Cowboys quarterback record, and he's probably playing better than any quarterback right now. I agree with that. Shane says Dak has never looked better. It's truly wild. He came off that horrible injury last year, and he looks 10 years younger. I mean, he also, I think an underrated element of what Dak Prescott has done. I haven't looked this up to confirm my thought process, to be very clear, but from just a feel and a vibe, and I hate to call it an eye test, but a feel and a vibe standpoint, Dak is more mobile, more willing to run. And I don't mean that he's running like he did against Washington once upon a time with the amazing stiff arm. I just mean the occasional, move the sticks run, the occasional, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 6, whatever. And those things are really helpful. I mean, there are certain elements that are making this Cowboys offense work to the degree that it is. And it's, I think, the most impressive one to this point of the season that we've ever seen in the Dak Prescott era. Some of that, a significant majority of that, is obviously the addition of George Pickens. A lot of it is obviously the resurgence of Jake Ferguson and becoming who he was at one point in time. But I do believe, beyond also the fact that the Cowboys have a very dependable and reliable run game, that Dak Prescott's mobility in and of itself is something that I hate to dilute it so much as to say that it's keeping defenses honest, but it's another thing. It's an added element. It's another variable. It's something else you have to just kind of put into the mix and the bottle, and something else for Brian Schottenheimer to work with. And look, I don't think any of us thought that the Cowboys would be 3-1 through 7 games. I think that goes without saying, but I think that in some respects, this team is outperforming what we thought. And I think that the best way to have that conversation is if we had a conversation about who we thought the Cowboys would be on the evening of October 19th, back on the day that they traded Micah Parsons, I think that we would have thought that they were going to be worse than what they actually are. Now, the way they got here has been rocky and chaotic and dramatic. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that in that moment we could have foreseen the offense being as good as it has been. So in that respect, they've over-delivered on expectation. And I think in that moment, we thought this defense is going to be one of the worst to ever take the field in franchise history. And in that respect, we were kind of right. But if, as represented by the Washington win, they are starting to turn a corner, and they're just, instead of being like the very, very, very worst in franchise history, they're just like the top of the bottom, 4th, right? Like, it's a low bar, but that's still improvement. I think that is better than we would have anticipated or forecasted or predicted on the day that they traded away Micah Parsons. And so they're their stock is up. I think that who they are, the potential of who they are, is higher than we could have forecasted when this season was beginning in earnest, which was obviously in the immediate aftermath of the Micah Parsons trade. Romo Racer on YouTube says, Dak building a loving family, seems to be doing so much. Good for his spirit and his game. I love this. As a husband and a father, I can't speak enough as to how much my life has been changed by my wife and my son. I should give a shout out today. I know a lot of you, thankfully, have been with me for many years and followed me and watched my shows and listened to me. And I can't tell you just how flattered I am by that. Today, October 19th, is the 6-year anniversary of when my wife and I first got our dog, Bear. Bear has made many an appearance on Blogging the Boys productions, some that were my fault, most that were his. But today, 6 years ago that Bear first came into our lives. And I just have to say, Bear is the first dog that I have ever owned. And we have another dog. Her name is Honey. She's wonderful, and I love having them both. But Bear is very special to me, and that relationship is very special to me. And so I'm grateful that so many of you have appreciated Bear in the interactions he's had with you all as an audience member and as a co-host, I suppose. But I agree in that respect that family obviously can improve your life in a lot of ways, even professionally, whether it's as a blogger or an NFL quarterback. On YouTube, Johnny Boyer says, the question remains if they can sustain not being the worst defense in the league. I agree with that point. Look, once more, let's just say it this way. Let's put our request out there. I agree with J Dog, says this win is for Bear. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. We are not asking the Cowboys defense to be top 10 in the NFL. We're not even asking them to be top half in the NFL. You know what sounds great? Let me just make up a random number. Just be the 23rd best defense in the NFL. Heck, be the 26th best defense in the NFL. On a bad day, be the 28th best defense in the NFL. That's the bar. And we're not saying that in a way that is meant to be insulting. We're not saying that in a way that is meant to be demeaning. We completely and totally mean the absolute opposite of that. We're not asking for something that is not attainable. We're not asking for something that is beyond the scope of imagination, not just for you, but for anyone. It's unfair to ask anyone to consistently be the best at anything, except for, I don't know, the Dallas Cowboys offense. So if you can just be the 20th to 28th best defense in the NFL on a given day, dude, that's enough. I mean, it really is. And that's our request. It's a very simple one. And again, we're not saying it in a mocking way. We're not saying it in a way that it is meant to sound derogatory. We're saying it in a way that means we know how this team is put together. We believe that this is the proper, combination of variables and of materials. And if you can do that, this team's going to win a lot of football games. There was a question on YouTube. Think Tank Gallery says, RJ, what's your take on the minimum Cowboys win record for us to start hoping for a Dak MVP? Oh, I love this question. They got to be a playoff team. That's not a minimum number, but they have to be for Dak to win MVP. They have to be a playoff team. That goes without saying. They're never going to give MVP to a player who's not in the playoffs. He might win Offensive Player of the Year. He might win Comeback Player of the Year in that hypothetical, but there is no way he comes close to MVP without at least being on a playoff team. So, if you want to consider that to be, well, now that they have the tie, 10 wins, 11 wins, I think that's the kind of first floor that we have to establish. Christian says, I would take the 26th best defense. Senor Ray says, middle of the pack and the O's got your back. I completely agree with that. Shane says, don't allow 15-yard runs every other play. Not asking a lot. Sports fan says, just don't be the equivalent of a participation trophy defense. LOL. Trav on Bleacher Report says, played our schedule. Injuries are all over the NFL, so throw that excuse out the window. Defense looked better, and Dak did as usual with an MVP push for the season. Here's the thing, man. The formula is simple, right? And the formula is what it is because of who the Cowboys have. The Cowboys have going for them. Like, these things are all commodities on the 2025 Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams, Jake Ferguson, the offensive line, Brian Schottenheimer, Clayton Adams, Connor Riley, Ryan Flanoy, right? Right there is already enough to be ridiculously excited about. We haven't mentioned anybody on the defensive side of the ball. And if you want to, as a result of Sunday, throw in names or opportunities like Deron Bland, Jadeveon Clowney had a moment, Shamar James, right? Like, we can start to maybe get a little bit excited about, a few different things. That's a lot. You've also got, obviously, Brandon Aubrey, Kevontae Turpin, right? Like this is a long list now. And so all of a sudden you have reason to believe. And that's what that's the simple thing we're asking for, is we're asking for a reason to believe. Do not actively sabotage yourself. It's already very difficult to win in the NFL. You have a lot that should help you, get there on your own. So just do it, right? Like just don't complicate things more than they already are. Jonathan Dortch, says this defense has been getting better. Haven't allowed 40 points since the Green Bay game. This was actually, the fewest amount of points that a Cowboys defense allowed at home this season, because the Giants had 37, the Packers had 40 in the tie. So only 22. Watch out, world, right? The Cowboys defense is turning a corner. Let's see here. Looking at anything. Jerry Jones said he has not. Oh, this is an interesting tweet from Ed Werder. Jerry Jones said he has not seen Trayvon Diggs since he reported concussion symptoms from an accident at home, but shared that Diggs will be paid his game check and expects him to be on the field once he clears protocols as soon as next week. I was on 105 to the Fan with my buddies on Sunday morning, and I was asked about this. I don't have a take. I don't have a thought. I don't have any conspiracy theories on the Trayvon Diggs thing. If I have a take, is I want all players playing for the Dallas Cowboys. I want all players healthy. I want all players who can help to be able to help. I want that to happen. So again, I know that Trayvon is a divisive subject for some people on the internet. I don't have a real, intense thing to say one way or the other. I hope he can play. I think he can help. I hope he's able to help. I hope he does help. That's really kind of all I want. Oh, I agree with you. RP63 says Easy is stepping up. That's right. Donovan Ezuraku coming into his own. That's a very, very exciting thing, to see finally. This, I think we should also mention, by the way, like in case you somehow didn't notice this, and kudos to the Fox broadcast for talking about this, but in case you missed it, Brandon Aubrey had a 61-yard field goal on Sunday against Washington, because of course he did. And this gives him the most 60-yard field goals that any person has ever had in NFL history. I know that we live in an information overload world, and I love that, to be very clear. I don't say that in a, kind of catch a stray way, but I think that we're not fully absorbing how incredible that is. He has the most 60-yard field goals in NFL history. He has 5, so let's not make it seem like it's 100, but I mean that's incredible. And it's also not like he's been playing for the Cowboys for a decade or something. It's his 3rd season. I mean, not just with the Cowboys, but in the NFL. I know he was an older rookie and all this stuff, but I mean, holy crap! What an unbelievable thing. I mean, what a just absolute unbelievable weapon that the Cowboys have. And what a cool thing. When Brandon Aubrey's career is done, he is going to own the dumbest records. I mean, he's going to own the most insane and ridiculous bits of NFL history. So this was obviously kind of the I don't even want to say the first foray into it, because we've seen many different forays into it, but pretty cool that Brandon Aubrey has more 60-yard field goals than anybody to ever live. That is pretty sweet. Let's see here. Christian says, yeah, that's wild. Sports fan says, I really want that record-breaking attempt eventually. Yeah, I don't know. It's got to be the right thing. It's got to be the right circumstances. Like, it's got to be necessary enough and the right timing in a game, and whatnot. Like, you maybe I think the end of half is the best kind of opportunity for that, because you don't want to obviously, miss it and give up great field position. But I actually think something we need to acknowledge, something we need to say is among the most intense strengths of the Dallas Cowboys offense. You put this team in a hole at the end of a first half, and holy crap, Javonte Williams will run through it. I mean, goodness gracious, the George Pickens catch at the end of the first half to put the Cowboys in field goal range was awesome. And I think we all probably had the same thought, like, oh, poof, great. Now they're going to get a field goal. This is awesome. This will really help because Washington just scored and they're going to go into the half. You're going to get some points. That was really well done. And then Javonte Williams says, whoa, Miss Lippy, we're not here to settle for any kind of field goal. I'm going to do exactly what I did against the New York Jets. I'm going to run all the way down. I'm not going to get out of bounds this time, but I'm going to put us in a position to score. And that's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys did. Their ability to steal points like that, steal touchdowns. That's literally what it is. It's theft. Their ability to steal those types of touchdowns is the most visible mark of an elite offense. The ability to say, yeah, we're just going to do it. Like to not even break a sweat is unbelievable and is among the most impressive things that this offense has been able to achieve. multiple times this season. It's not like it's only happened once. So that is a very, very, very cool thing. John says, RJ having a great weekend with ASU beating Tech yesterday. That's right. Forks up. Holy crap. It was super awesome. My Florida Gators got a win too. And I don't like to root for people getting fired, but moving in a more positive overall direction on Sunday, that's also a great thing. It was just and Man United beat Liverpool. I mean, it is a great weekend in my house, to say the least. Let's see here. Making sure I'm not missing anything. Anybody saying anything? No more post-game quotes. Oh, what is this one? What is this? Dak Prescott has a wrap on his throwing hand. He said it's nothing serious. This is a tweet from John Machota. So hopefully all is good, but I mean, sometimes you just got to take care of things. So there's no reason to panic, but just so we know, nonetheless. I also think it goes without saying, like, all the best to Jaden Daniel. Speaking of Arizona State, we don't like division rivals. We all agree there. We also never root for injuries. We all agree there. So hopefully Jaden Daniels is all good and he's healthy soon enough. You never want to see that happen to another team, to another player. I haven't seen any update on Kenny Clark, Jonathan, but whatever's happening, we will definitely keep you updated, obviously, all week long at bloggingtheboys.com, as we always do. So, okay, look, I tweeted this before the game, and I'm just going to say one more time. These are the days. These in the middle of May, not even the middle of May, like in the middle of March, right? Even during stuff that we like even during free agency or the draft, these are the days. Like when it's starting to get dark early, when the cooler weather's coming. I don't know where you live, but you get my point. Like generally the cooler weather's coming. When it's come time to use the crock pot and make some chili, and we're getting close to Halloween, like all the holidays start coming up. When the Cowboys get a win on a day like this, it just, man, I just don't know many better things. I mean, it is just such an awesome feeling. It is just such a great time of year. And when they can just rip one off like that, there are very few emotions like that in my mind, beyond the obvious things, right? You get my point. And so what an awesome day. What an awesome way to experience the game. What an awesome type of game. If you're watching this after the fact and you were there, I hope you just had the best time. These are the ones we missed. These are the ones that I miss. And so I'm glad that it was something special for all of us. And I certainly hope that it was, to the fullest extent that it was possible to be for you and however you watched or consumed the game on Sunday afternoon. Okay, on Monday, we'll have some day after thoughts, reactions, another video dropping on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. So if you're there, if you're new around here, please like the video, please subscribe. It's going to be fun. We've got Broncos week coming up. I'll have a guest talking Broncos. We'll have a live episode of the NFC East Mixtape on Tuesday. Videos every day, every single day. And when there aren't full videos, we got lots of shorts coming out. I also have lots of videos on my socials, X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Go like my Facebook page, all that fun, awesome stuff. It's the best time of year. And the Cowboys are 3-3-1, and everything is fully in front of them. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's possible. If they had lost this game, I mean, it really would have turned this season in a negative way. And so that did not happen. And now we're allowed to dream again. That's the best part of football season. So thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. I love each and every single one of you. Shout out to my bear boy. I love you so much, buddy. And looking forward to many more. Y'all have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy Sunday Night Football, and we will see you next time.